Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I've been taking a break from VGC while we wait for Scarlet and Violet to drop later next month, but I couldn't resist making one more bit of content for the absolute craziest league I've taken part in, the Malamar Games. That's a play on Squid Games if you didn't catch that, and while no one dies, it is pretty nuts. Every week we spin a wheel for a random format to play. These aren't formats like your standard VGC formats like Series 9 or 10 or 12. No, it's more like all middle evolutions, no items, only holiday-themed Pokemon, stuff like that where no one has any experience. It's just wackiness, and I had a ton of fun with it. It was put together by a player named Bruno from Georgia VGC, who's already running a second season with some big content creators on board. I'll go ahead and link him in the description below. The season I played in was pretty long, so this is actually going to be 2 videos. Take a look at the beginning of my run and let me know what you think. The game started with a format where we chose our opponent's team for them out of the top 50 Pokemon on Pikalytics for Series 12. So of course the goal was to make the most awful team imaginable. You can see what my opponent Bazuk and I did to each other, and it was rough. Nothing with a high base stat total or even attacking stat except for the Regigigas I got stuck with, and of course it came with no wheezing. Now, a smart person might have put all their stock in Ludicolo or Torkoal, but I had other plans. That's right, we're going to try to make no wheezing Regigigas happen. I'm packing a Berry, Substitute, and Protect in an effort to try to stall out my own slow start turns. Of course, my opponent doesn't have anything particularly strong, and slow start doesn't lower my defenses, so I've got a decent shot. Better than decent, in fact, because my opponent attacked Mienshao on the first turn, which allowed me to get Substitute up for free turn 1. I was then able to keep it up through turns 2 and 3 with Protect. And then take out Talonflame with my coverage choice of Rock Slide. This was a pretty good start, but of course my opponent had their own plans. Yeah, of course Sableye had Will-O-Wisp, and I was dumb enough not to pack Facade even though I knew what my opponent's team was going into this. Even with slow start gone, burned Regigigas is effectively a paperweight, and my whole strategy became kinda worthless. I actually might have pulled it back with Ferrothorn's Akaberry into Weezing's Heat Wave, but a Power Whip miss into their Gastrodon sealed the game for my opponent. I was hoping to pull things back in Game 2 with some Surf and Storm Drain shenanigans, but I forgot that I calced Ludicolo to use its Kobo Berry to live in Airstream from Sharp Beak Talonflame rather than the Life Orb my opponent chose. The whole game kinda spiraled from there, and my first Malamar Games set ended 0-2. It may not have gone well, but I tried something cool out here, and it was pretty fun. We're just gonna have to see how the next set goes for me. My second round was up against Purplepiglis in a theme where we had to choose a team that top cut in Gen 7 or earlier and then build from those 6 to work in Gen 8. I chose Solgaleo because the Xerneas was so popular back then, and my opponent actually brought Xerneas, so it seemed like this was going to pay off for me. And honestly, it should have, but there's no way to sugarcoat this. I got both outplayed and outbuilt in this set. I definitely should have had Focus Sash on my Tornadus to guarantee I could get both Tailwind and Brutal Swing off, but in the end I was only able to set Tailwind. This allowed my opponent to get crucial offensive and defensive buffs with Beast Boost and Steel Spike respectively. I just didn't have the power or speed control to come back from that. Even in Game 2, where I got a great lead with Solgaleo into their Xerneas, my opponent just read me with Rage Powder, and then when I taunted that Rage Powder, they protected the following turn with Xerneas. They just stalled out my max so effectively that I was unable to come back from this point. We did get fairly close, but by the time I got Xerneas off the field, yeah, it was just over, and my opponent's Dynamax really put a dent in me. After losing this set 0-2, I'm also 0-2 for sets in the league, so I'm really going to have to be on top of my game if I want a shot at the playoffs. Of course, making up for an 0-2 deficit is way easier said than done, especially because my opponent in the next round is Alex123 or Neighbor Naughty, who is a really solid player. The theme for this week was bipedal Pokemon only in Series 9, and luckily for me, that fit one of my old Series 9 video teams perfectly. We're going with the hardest hyper offense I can imagine, with nothing but fast and hard-hitting mons with an Indeedee Mail to stop Trick Room, and that's pretty much it. We either kill our opponent or we die trying. Things did not start off great for me here, as I made a bad prediction of their Grimmsnarl going for some kind of prankster shenanigans, and swapped my Indeedee in to use its Psychic Terrain to try to stop that. Unfortunately, all that did was let me take a big Duraludon attack to the face while they just set up screens. I did pull things back a bit with a very cool Max Knuckle from Cinderace into Banded Wicked Blow combo to get around Duraludon's Steel Spike boosts, but I just barely missed the KO there. Cinderace almost pulls it back in the 2v1, but Alex made great use of Protect Rillaboom to stall out the rest of my Dynamax. Even though Cinderace was able to shake off Intimidate with its White Herb, the Reflect allowed his Rillaboom to take my Pyro Ball and therefore take Game 1. Of course, I am completely shameless, so I started off Game 2 with a switcheroo eject button play, and it succeeded pretty well, actually. If you haven't learned by this point in Generation 8, it's a little gimmick where I force my opponent's Dynamax Pokemon to switch out and waste their remaining turns by giving them an item that causes them to switch out when I hit them. Their Diggersby was knocked out of Dynamax before it got to move even once, and I got a nice attack boost for my triples. I feel bad, but only a little bit, because it felt really good to sweep through with Cinderace to even up the set. I managed to carry that momentum into Game 3, as my eject button play last game conditioned my opponent away from a turn 1 Dynamax. This allowed me to pick up a quick turn 1 Oko into their Grimmsnarl, and that snowballed into big attack after big attack. This is exactly what the Hyper Offense team was going for, and it made me pretty happy. This was my first win of the season, but that still puts me at 1-2, so I'm going to need a lot more to pull myself back into the competition. Week 4 had probably the least interesting theme of the tournament, which was just plain old Series 10. That means no Dynamax and one restricted legendary Pokemon. No Dynamax was a nice little palate cleanser after the last few weeks, though, and I decided to bring Santi's invitational winning Tornogre team starring Weavile. My opponent Neptune brought an interesting squad, but honestly, it did not match up well at all into mine. Seriously, Santi's team is super strong. It just tore through this round. Props to Neptune for trying something novel, but I think these clips speak for themselves. Palkia isn't even a bad choice in Series 10, but there's a reason no one has played Rhyperior since the Isle of Armor dropped, and you're looking at it, it's Rillaboom. A 4 times weakness to a priority move is just a death sentence. In Game 2, I did just barely miss an KO in general on Dusclops, so Trick Room did go up, which made things a little trickier. But honestly, Rillaboom and Urshifu and Rain were just too much. I'm 2-2 in the league now, but I'm not going to have the luxury of familiar formats going forward. Week 5 was back to standard Malamar shenanigans. We're playing Series 9, but only Pokemon with warm colors. Believe it or not, every Pokemon has an official color designation, so you have to stick to ones that were warm colors like red, pink, brown, that kind of thing. My opponent Squiddo actually made a mistake in thinking that Amoonguss was red, but its official color designation is white, so we just made a gentleman's agreement that they'd leave Amoonguss at home. I also got to bring my favorite Dragonite back out for a spin, so that was definitely a highlight. Bulky offense with Clefairy redirection was one of my favorite archetypes in Series 9, and it did a lot of work for me here. It allowed Dragonite and Mamoswine to just absolutely shine. Game 1 was a series of sweeps as Clefairy allowed Dragonite to put their Dynamax Koko into Ice Shard range. Dragonite then picked up an easy Life Orb Airstream Oko onto Cinderace, and from that point, I'd set up to completely unbeatable win con with Mamoswine into Alecki and Landorus. Game 2 was a little harder and required some good switches on my part to dodge on Alecki Rising Voltage by swapping in my ground type, and save my Dragonite with a forfeit of my remaining Dynamax turns. Clefairy, being positioned properly, then allowed Mamoswine and Dragonite to continue to be the stars of the show. Honestly, bad luck for Squiddo because I think they were really counting on having their Amoonguss, but we definitely take those. At this point, I'm positive in the league with a 3-2 record, but we have to continue the win streak to have a shot at playoffs. The next week's theme was Berry Bash, meaning we could only use berries as held items. I took a look at my old Series 9 teams and realized that almost every Mon on this Sunrib squad could benefit from a berry, so here we are. My opponent is Professor Walnut. They also make VGC content, so you should definitely go check them out. I'm going to put their channel in the description. Walnut was way more creative than me in this theme, in particular with an unnerved Corviknight to completely invalidate all of my held items, which had to be berries. I started game 1 with a standard Indeedee Hatterene lead to set up Trick Room and Gigantamax the following turn. Honestly, this went about as well as I could ask for, with Indeedee even living the double up. But Landorus' Lumberry curing my confusion, alongside all the Quake boosts they were able to stack up, made this devolve into just an absolute slugfest where neither of us were able to crack each other's defenses effectively. Luckily, in the end, my team's coverage and speed control won out, and Corviknight knocked itself out to give me the first game. My luck didn't last, though. When I said Walnut was more creative than me this week, I was not kidding. While I go for the same old follow me trick room play, they pull out the Sweet Scent Hypnosis, which has the added effect of using my Hatterene's Magic Bounce to trigger their own Milotic's competitive boost. Even though I got Trick Room up, smart switches and big hits like this gave the game to Walnut easily, and I had to reassess what I wanted to do for Game 3. I really thought about it, and I figured Walnut wouldn't depend on the same gimmick twice, so I resisted the urge to lead with Hatterene and Leopard or Venacol, and just go with Old Reliable again. The gamble actually paid off, as I got my Trick Room up. What's more, my opponent ended up burning their Dynamax way too early, so I was able to smack them with massive spread damage repeatedly with my Trick Room, and keep the major damage onto Indeedee with Follow Me. Afterwards, I was able to just close the game out with my own Dynamax, but thanks to the Shokaberry on Stakataka, I'm not even sure it was necessary. 4-2 in the league, and things are actually starting to look up. Okay, week 7 was a pretty wild theme too. It was Noah's Ark, so what that means is we had to have 3 pairs of 2 animals, like birds, dogs, cats, etc. Moltres and Porygon were my birds, Sylveon and Landorus were my cats, but the organizer just had to lump all the other mammals together in order to have a functioning list for us, so I got away with having Glastrier and Rillaboom as a mammal pair. Hey, I'm not going to look a gift horse or monkey in the mouth. My opponent Sanaito was more of a stickler for the rules and had a much speedier team, so I decided to start with a Trick Room route. Game 1 went really well for me, and it all came down to this turn 1. I got a great Sleep Powder dodge turn 1 that allowed me to get a free Swords Dance and set up Trick Room, while I was really only counting on getting 1. This happened right as my opponent set up Tailwind, so I pretty much have absolute speed control for the rest of this Trick Room despite having middling speeds on my team. They then went for a cute priority Airstream with Talonflame after TR was up, but that's risky when you're up against +2 rock coverage from Landorus. My Lumberry then came in clutch against future Sleep Powders, and my opponent was forced to forfeit before my Dynamax even came out. Game 2, however, was a lot harder because Sanaito just played way better this time. I had prepped a Pixelate Quick Attack into Moltres Weakness Policy strat, but I was too scared to pull the trigger in the face of Fake Out Incin. My opponent just bluffed me out, though, by using Parting Shot to switch out into their Zapdos. Here again, I was too scared to take advantage of the Weakness Policy proc my opponent gave me, and they called me out with a Helping Hand Lightning into Sylveon, while my Landorus swap did nothing. Luckily for me, Sylveon is a specially defensive monster and took the hit to get a yawn off. That electric terrain won't help your flying Zapdos. From there, I was able to stall out their max and take back the momentum with my own Landorus Dynamax to close out the set 2-0. At this point, I'm 5-2 in the league, and we're a real contender for playoffs, so we're going to keep on trucking. I think we got time for one more set in this video. For week 8, I was up against the creator of the Malamar Games, Bruno. This was yet another crazy theme called Mirror Match. We each took turns choosing Pokemon for the team we'd have to bring. I was fairly experienced with the Calyrex mirror in Series 12, so I felt going in, but things got rough pretty quickly. It turns out Bruno was well aware that I liked max speed Sash Ensign, and they brought a speedy Finny to break it before I could parting shot out. That combined with a bad Ensign switch for my part gave them the momentum to take out Ensign, and then my Calyrex once their Duraludon came in later in the game. This left my support Finny completely helpless, and I was forced to forfeit Game 1 pretty early. Game 2 started a lot better, as my gamble on Ensign at least outspeeding their Palkia paid off. My Sash was still broken, but I got a parting shot off before they were able to do their first Dynamax turn. Unfortunately, I got the worst kind of deja vu as I made yet another bad Ensign switch into a Palkia Max Quake, and that -1 was not saving me. Luckily, I did get a great Nature's Madness into Glacial Lance combo, which gave me a double KO with Calyrex Ice, which Chilling Neigh will give me a +2, doubling my power. That power was just enough to pick up yet another double KO after a very clutch Flash Cannon survival thanks to the Max Quake boost on my Calyrex. With that, it all comes down to Game 3. I started off way more aggressively in Game 3 to try to use my Palkia's Flamethrower tech with a max flare into my opponent's Calyrex, but they called me with a Protect, so that's not a great start. Luckily, I was able to pick back the momentum with some targeted reads in the rest of my Dynamax. This, combined with Heal Pulse Finny and that Flamethrower tech I mentioned, allowed me to claw back into a position where I was in a solid endgame. Another Nature's Madness into Glacial Lance combo gave me another nice double KO. This was an awesome set that could have gone either way, so big props to Bruno. We're now looking at a 6-2 record in the league, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. Thanks for watching, everyone. I actually got an activity win in week 9, so as of the end of this video, my record is 7-2. Stay tuned for the next video where we'll finish out the rest of the regular season of the Malamar Games and hopefully the playoffs. Until next time.